Persia made its first appearance in the Civilization franchise in Civilization 2 and were led by Xerxes. Persia have been a staple of the Civilization franchise ever since. Xerxes returned to lead Persia in Civilization 3 and has returned again as the leader of the Antiquity Age Persia in Civilization 7. For Civilizations 4, 5, and 6, Civ developers continued to pluck leaders from the Achaemenid Dynasty, which is often regarded as the peak of ancient Persian culture when the empire was at its most vast and influential. But for those middle entrants in the series, the leaders were either Cyrus or Darius, far better choices than Xerxes as they are more widely loved and respected as wise and great leaders, whereas Xerxes is seen as inheriting a great and powerful empire and mostly squandering its riches fighting Greek city-states. Welcome to Beyond Civilization Stories, where we explore the world beyond the lens of the world's most addictive video game. Persia, along with Greece and Rome, is one of the most beloved classical empires of the Civilization franchise, and the first in the line of those classical empires said to have controlled most, if not all, of the known world in antiquity. Founded by Cyrus the Great with its capital at Pasargad, the Achaemenid Dynasty flourished from 550 BC, rising to its peak under the leadership of Darius the Great, Cyrus's son-in-law and the first king of kings, who moved the capital to Persepolis before the empire began its decline and eventual defeat at the hands of Alexander the Great and the Macedonian Greeks in 330 BC. Most of what the Achaemenid dynasty built was burnt or demolished by either Alexander and the Greeks or during the Arab invasion in the 7th century, when the ruling dynasty in Persia was the Sasanian Empire. Little remains of Pasargad but Cyrus's tomb, some old columns, and irrigation tracts that are evidence of the old walled gardens that Cyrus designed, and that were known as Paradisa, which is where the modern word paradise comes from, and which is the Persian unique tile improvement in both Civs 6 and 7. Persepolis is by far the most impressive and well-preserved historical site from this period, and is home to two wonders that have appeared in the Civilization video games. They are the Apadana from Civ 6, which grants 2 great work slots to the city, as well as 2 envoys anytime the civilization builds a wonder, making it a great diplomatic wonder that allows players to build wonders and make use of city-state bonuses. Located just a few meters away from the Apadana is the Gate of All Nations that appears in Civilization 7. Built by Xerxes as a symbol of Persian greatness, the Gate of All Nations was a ceremonial gateway that leaders of lesser ancient civilizations passed through when they entered the royal palace. The Gate of All Nations began as my favorite wonder in Civ 7 as it gave players +2 war support on all of its wars. It made your armies instantly more powerful than your rivals and gave players great incentive to go to war. It has since been nerfed down to only a +1 war support. They have also buffed the legacy trees to allow leaders +1 war support, meaning that by the time you build it, at least on Deity, its effects are nullified every time. Developers of Civ 7 designed a great and meaningful wonder that impacted the outcome of games, and upon realizing how coveted it was by players, I'm looking at you, multiplayer community, turned it into a limp, meaningless waste of production. They took the wonder right out of the wonder. But laying eyes on the real thing is still a wonderful experience. In Civ 6, Cyrus leads Persia, who were added with one of the first of Civ 6's DLCs. Persia's satrapies ability improves domestic trade routes. Since on Deity I'm so often at war, relying on domestic trade routes is incredibly important, and the satrapies ability really helps to keep my economy stable. Cyrus gets a bonus to movement after declaring a surprise war and takes less of a diplomatic hit when doing so. Nader Shah was added as a leader to Persia in Civ 6's final DLC pack, the Leader Pass, and is the first inclusion of a Persian leader not from the Achaemenid Dynasty. Nader Shah was the founder of the Achaemenid Dynasty in the mid-18th century. He also gets the satrapies ability, but further improves domestic trade routes with extra gold and faith. Units controlled by Nader Shah also get a combat bonus fighting enemy units that have full health. The last noteworthy inclusion of Persia in the Civilization series is the Immortal, which has been linked to Persia in the series since Civ 3. The Immortal Army was a feared core of the Persian Empire during the Achaemenid period that got its name from the fact that any casualties sustained during battle were immediately replaced. Constantly resupplying their advance with reserves made the Immortals seem unstoppable to their enemies. But what is Persia like today? Today, the descendants of the Persian Empire live in present-day Iran, which I had the opportunity to visit in November. Iran is one of the most misunderstood countries I have ever visited. A couple of key points to note. 1. Although Islam is practiced in Iran, meaning they follow the Quran, pray while facing toward Mecca, and the Prophet Muhammad is their spiritual founder, Shia Muslims are separate and distinct from Sunni Muslims, similar to the separation in Christianity between Catholics and Protestants. They also represent a minority of Muslims throughout the Islamic world. 2. Much of the Islamic world, especially in the region of the Middle East, is Arab. From Morocco across North Africa and the Levant all the way to Saudi Arabia and Iraq, Arabic, the language of the Quran, is the dominant language and culture. But that stops when you reach Iran, where the language is predominantly Farsi. Farsi is a completely distinct language that uses a modified Arabic script. A similar comparison would be how Greeks and Russians speak completely different languages, but Cyrillic, the script used by Russians, is derived from the Greek alphabet. All this is to say that although Iran could often get lumped together with other Islamic countries of the Middle East, it is in fact a completely separate and unique culture. Without delving too much into the nuances of the current political climate, Iran is one of the most heavily sanctioned countries in the world, which does make visiting the country quite a challenge. Although we entered with many apprehensions, we discovered that, as is the case with most places facing such challenges, if you look, there are solutions to just about every problem. So let's break some of them down. The first challenge is money. Similar to Russia, Iran has been cut off from the worldwide banking system, meaning none of our cards would work, and we would need to enter with cash. With our ears to the ground, we heard reports of some banks offering local cards to foreigners upon which you could transfer money, but in our case, it never came to this, and we got by on cash. But even before we arrived in Iran, we found an agency called Tap Persia, who were very helpful. They had agents always on hand to answer our questions on WhatsApp. We were set to arrive late at night, and I wanted to leave nothing to chance on that first day. So, through them, we were able to secure our visitor visas, insurance policies, our first night's hotel in Tehran, as well as an airport pickup at 11 p.m. And we were able to pay for it all using our cards. They take a decent commission, but you can book a lot of things through their site if you run low on cash and need to pay with your cards. Speaking of cash, whatever you read about on currency exchanges, don't believe any of it. The first time we changed money, I received 120 million rials for 100 euro. This became the standard by which I measured every exchange. When my girlfriend asked how much money 120 million rials was, I explained that it doesn't matter. It only matters what you can buy. Every city has someone who will trade rials for euros or US dollars. They can be official or unofficial, but even agents at the official places will run into the street to get the cash from the unofficial guys to make the exchange. The real difference between the official or non-official places is you counting stacks of bills in the semi-private space of what passes for an office, or counting stacks of bills in the street. Oh, and the currency takes a while to get used to because officially it is known as rials, with the most common denomination being 1 million, which is about $1. But locals most commonly refer to their currency as tomans, which is, well, just remove a zero or 3 zeros depending on who you're talking to or in what context. So that dollar can get referred to as either 100,000 or 1,000. It took me a solid week to get used to it, but a blue bill is about $1. The other constant stress, at least for two digital nomads, was internet. Iran's digital infrastructure is one of the poorest in the world, and the internet at hotels can be woeful in Europe and North America, but it can be Zanzibar bad in Iran. We were able to mitigate these challenges by visiting a number of co-working spaces. Although co-working spaces were only available in major cities, they were filled with kind and interesting young entrepreneurs and intellectuals, and did provide us with reliable internet connections so we could send and receive large files as well as conduct video calls. Have a few VPNs handy. When we arrived in Tehran, we were terrified like a couple of lost kittens. Iran is an incredible clash of extremes, and for anyone who has spent any time in the delicate chaos of the Middle East, sometimes Tehran can feel more Middle East than the Middle East. The city sprawls forever. Traffic is insane. The bazaar is noisy, congested, and endless, but suddenly you can step into a shopping mall and everything is clean and orderly. The outside world is a panic, where to cross the street on foot is to take one's life in one's own hands, but then descend to the subway where everything is clean, efficient, and modern, and you can ride to almost anywhere in the city for just a few cents. My first piece of advice, though, would be if you arrive in Tehran, which is most likely, leave as soon as you can. The towns and cities outside the capital are prettier, more affordable, and more manageable. Buses to major destinations are comfortable and also affordable. But Tehran is the economic hub of the country and is a necessary evil that one has to visit and experience. Isfahan is a very pretty and laid-back city with nice architecture. Nakhchivan Square, I'm probably mispronouncing that, is one of the largest and prettiest central squares I've seen in the Middle East, if not the world. The whole thing is also surrounded by a chill, well-lit bazaar. Shiraz is also a pretty town and is the gateway to the sites of the Achaemenid Empire that I mentioned before. There are tons of ways to organize all kinds of tours. Yazd is a fun town whose old city is an incredible labyrinth of old streets and where you can see wind catchers, a pre-industrial home cooling technology. We also found this incredible zoo called Lizardland that is located in an old mansion where all of the animals just kind of roam around. I mean, anything dangerous is behind glass, but their collection is quite impressive. Those were the noteworthy towns we visited, but we left after 3 weeks feeling like we wanted more and needing to return someday. With so many stresses over internet and money, I had to make a judgment call about how long our cash and our patience could comfortably last. So, needing to make sure we could reconnect with the world, we limited our visit to just 3 weeks of the 30 days allowed by our visas. As I mentioned, we landed in Iran as lost kittens, but once you learn Iran's idiosyncrasies and its rhythms, it's not hard to fall in love with it. The reason for that is Iran's people. I've been all over the world and never in my life, from individual to individual, have I met a more kind, generous, and curious people than those from Iran. In Vancouver, we have strong Iranian communities who run some of the best ethnic food shops. I was first introduced to local Iranians when I visited Russia during the World Cup, watched Iran play Spain in Kazan, and we all rode the trains and visited cultural sites together. And it could be a product of the fact that Iran these days attracts few tourists outside of Turkey and some of the neighboring countries, but the locals were so kind to us and ready to move heaven and earth to make us feel welcome. My girlfriend was treated like a celebrity as groups of women would approach her to ask where she was from and take a photo with her. Dress codes have relaxed over recent years, and no joke, Iranian men are some of the most stylish blokes around. I had to constantly remind my lady not to fall in love. A guy we met on the subway taught me about the concept of taruf, which is basically Iran's sense of hospitality that is ingrained into the spirit of any Iranian. When he explained taruf to me, I said it was a beautiful thing that should be in every culture. But he went on to explain further that taruf is the kind of cultural norm that can be both a sincere and gracious welcome, as well as a weapon used by Iranians on each other, where folks try to almost out-taruf each other. Like, I will die before I am ever indebted to your kindness. Anyway, it worked out splendidly for us as we were able to make what I know will be lifelong friends, and in a country deemed by travel advisories as unsafe for travelers, it felt like we were always being protected by the local people. Whenever we looked even remotely lost, someone would approach us with a smile, ask how they could help, then lead us and stay with us all the way until the task was complete. No one was shy, and most people spoke at least a little English that they might have learned from Hollywood movies or American TV shows. There were even the occasional guardian angels along the way that helped us in times of real need, without asking for anything in return. Anyone familiar with the Middle East and its culture of bakshish will sympathize with how rare that is. Although I'll admit that with so many amazing countries in the world to visit, Iran can seem a bit daunting, but I really do think it is a country that will surprise any visitor. As I've stated before, I've been to so many countries. For many, you visit, see what you can, then wipe your hands and say that was fun. But I know I will one day return to Iran because I feel like I only got a small taste. Speaking of tastes, real quick, no alcohol. Soups, stews, decent fruits, and the world's best kebabs. My girlfriend and I are off gluten since our fasting experience, so we ate a lot of rice. She hates saffron, but Iranians love it and it's everywhere. Every town has their own signature local dish. There's lots of fast food available, but we avoided it. Every hotel offers a buffet breakfast, which is mostly the same everywhere. Not much coffee, mostly tea, but oh my god, my body and my digestion never felt better. As a little bonus to this video, with so few direct flights in and out of Iran, our route took a little extra planning, which meant stops in Baku, Azerbaijan before we entered, and Muscat, Oman after we left. I include these because Azerbaijan is home to Gobustan, which are the mudflats that appear as a wonder in Civ 6. They take you out on these old 4x4 ladas that look like they'll crumble to dust under a stiff breeze, but they ride them like ATVs, competing who can transport tourists the fastest while avoiding the Reaper. There's also a really interesting Neolithic rock art museum nearby with drawings from as far back as 14,000 years ago. Baku is also a chill city with a healthy mix of European vibes with Islamic culture. Muscat is the capital city of Oman and appears as a city-state in Civ 6. It is an economic city-state that adds one amenity for every city with a commercial hub. It's a decent but not game-breaking bonus. Befriend them if it's convenient, otherwise it's one more city for your empire. Muscat is an old trading port that would have been a port of call for ships leaving and entering the Persian Gulf during the era of the old Silk Roads. Muscat is a long city with the airport at one end and the old city, the port of Mutra, at the other. Compared to the hustle and chaos of Tehran, Muscat feels so chill. The city is impeccably clean, traffic is mostly calm. It's not exactly a place that's convenient to walk around, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's so hot for most of the year. Nowadays, people spend most of their time between their cars and air-conditioned shopping malls. Still, it's modern and convenient, a little like Dubai if it felt no need to prove itself. No tall buildings in Oman, and a little more rigorous adherence to Islam than in the Emirates. I hope that the political situation between Iran and the West normalizes one day, and that visiting Iran becomes less of a hassle. It's a beautiful country, filled with kind-hearted people, and that has contributed so much to the history and culture of the region, and that it has earned its permanent place in the Civilization series. I hope you enjoy playing as Persia in Civ 6 or any Civ game. I hope you appreciate controlling Gobustan or being suzerain of Muscat, and if you have any questions about visiting Iran, Baku, Oman, or anywhere else for that matter, ask anytime or leave a comment down below. And remember to occasionally stop playing and make your own story, your own amazing path through history, and I'll see you next time.